Intern and J. Stevens, watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, J. Stevens in the studio for episode 237 of Dark Side of the Stream.
Ta-da!
We did the documentary. It was my pick. It's called Trainwreck, the Astroworld tragedy on Netflix. It describes a music festival in Texas where, 8 or 9 people lost their lives? Something like that. I think it was like 8 or 9.
I like these Trainwreck series that Netflix is doing. It's like they did one on Woodstock. They did the Trainwreck about Woodstock, you know.
But that the 95.
These
99.
These Trainwreck series they're doing. I like these.
I didn't know that it was a series, but we did that one too.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Series, yeah.
Color Me Shot.
Yeah, and they've got a couple other ones that they're coming out now too.
I didn't know it was a series.
Yeah, I like these.
Anyway, if you're unfamiliar, there is a hip-hop artist named Travis Scott who held a festival in Houston, Texas called Astroworld, which was kind of an all-day music festival, and it just went to hell in handbasket. Before we get into that, though, this isn't the first time that there has been a tragedy or tragedies at concert festivals or concerts, of course.
It happens with all genres.
The Great White Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Very big example. We covered that because we did that. Altamont. Yeah. The Who had someone die at a concert.
I think even Taylor Swift did.
No. And then South America or something like that. Wasn't it like heat exhaustion or something like that? Yeah. Radiohead had a it wasn't even at a show. They were building the stage and there was a collapse and they lost a longtime member of their crew.
Rock and roll's dangerous, man.
So again, when you're talking about festivals, concerts, huge outdoor things, there's a lot involved. You have a crew of several hundred dudes that are holding up rigging and, they're climbing up 1,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, that's a crazy job, dude. Crazy.
I'm best friends with the guy who does it still.
Crazy job.
I mean, he went down as soon as that Post Malone Jelly Roll thing done. He was down there trying to get in for 2 hours, but he was the one that tore it down. So, I mean, that part of it in itself, and I think what I'm doing here again is to try and give perspective of there are so many levels of putting something like this on that at any point, if there is a failure in any one of those levels, be it we've got 700 security guys on site when in reality there's only a couple hundred, we've got multiple exits for everyone to get out, but there's only like 2 and they're bottlenecked. Our traffic situation, or we're not checking everybody at the gate, or they're whatever the case may be.
Or the gates are so flimsy people can just bust them down.
Or they're jumping.
That's
fences.
been happening since the 60s too.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is like this stuff already. When you get this many people together, you are already playing with fire. And again, I told you about the Watt Stacks box set I got. We did that Watt Stack documentary, early 70s. Stax Record did that festival. I ended up getting an insane deal on the box set. It was 10 LPs I got for $50, which was a crazy good deal to have it all.
Not sponsored.
But the reason why I know it was discounted so much and why it didn't get sold is because literally half of those records are stage announcers saying, guys, you need to get back to your seat. You need to go stop. We got 100,000 people here. Why are 1,000 people deciding how this is going to go? Literally, this has been going on in every generation since the beginning. This isn't a youth thing. This isn't a hip-hop thing. This isn't a rock and roll thing. This isn't anything. Well, this is when you get a lot of people together, things are going to go wrong.
And I was not familiar with Travis Scott. I'd heard the name. I didn't know he was this big of an artist.
Oh, huge.
And so intense. Like, you get an intense artist like that, man. Like, that's what set off at that Woodstock was when Limp Bizkit came out there and just...
Lit it.
They did not de-escalate the situation. They pumped up the situation.
Now, before we get into that, let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about some of the scariest show experiences that we've had.
Okay.
Next, Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 237. We are discussing Trainwreck, Astroworld Tragedy on Netflix. So, again, we all know, because this made the headlines of what happened, and we'll get into that in another segment. But what I want to talk about now was, do you have, or have you had any instances where you were at a show or a festival or playing a show where things went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I've had instances where girls have jumped up on stage and fallen off stage. Twice. One time it was so bad, like straight to concrete. I thought this chick had died, dude. It was sketchy. It was.
And in that point, you got to understand, as a performer, as a promoter, as a bar owner, that you're all now liable for this.
Yeah,
because you could say that Jay, he told everyone, "Hey, girls, get on stage and jump."
Girls, yeah.
He's liable. He and Machine Gun Symphony get sued. The venue gets sued because there wasn't security to stop them. Again, the law is written such that people are stupid. Yeah. You got to stop them.
You have to know.
That's why we got to do those things. It's like you have a parked car in the middle of the street, not on the side where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you hit it, you're at fault.
Yeah.
Not the idiot that parked it there. You have to know better to do better.
Now,
and that's the way it's done.
I don't think I've ever been a participant at a show and had a crazy experience, but I know you've gone to some pretty packed shows.
Oh, I've had all kinds. The one I will talk about here, in this case, involved me in heat exhaustion, and I had to basically heat stroke. I'm pretty sure is what it was. Went to a show, middle of the summer, two bands I really, really love. First band was done, and it was right after I'd started eating different, and I know my blood sugar was out of whack, so I think this contributed to it too. But the second band starts playing, and they played one of my favorite songs, and I was hot. I mean, it was 102 that day. Ooh. And I had taken my shirt off, and I was going crazy. Well, then they kind of set everything about, they had like an acoustic kind of portion of the set. Everyone sits down, they kind of get into it, and while I sit, and I'm sitting down there, and I'm like, man, I don't feel good. I don't feel right. And I was like, I'm going to go get some water. Again, I think the whole day, because it was so hot, I just can't drink when it's that hot. It's just, it doesn't work. I may have had like 2 beers over the course of 4 or 5 hours. So anyway, I walk up the path and blacked out. Then I woke up, and there was a guy on top of me. He's like, "You okay, dude?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was just trying to go get some water." And he's like, "Let me help you up." And when he did, the blood pressure got me again, and I blacked out again.
Oh my gosh!
And the second time I woke up, there was a deputy helping me up. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Oh God, I'm
last thing you want to see."
Well, and I look at myself, and I'm just covered in blood. Every knuckle is busted. My knees are busted. I can't see my face, but I know I can feel. I just go like this. I just feel blood on my face. And I'm like, oh my God. And I sit down, and while I'm sitting there, the deputies, because they probably thought I was out of my mind, but again, I kept saying, they're like, what are you on? What are you on? What are you on? I'm like, officer, look, it's 102 degrees outside. I think I just had heat stroke. I think that's what this is. I think I got over hot. I was trying to get water.
Dang.
Well, that dude, the first guy that helped me up, saw what was happening. I had no idea who he was. Comes up to me, goes, hey, this is my friend. We were literally trying to get him water, and he blacked out.
Oh.
And so they go, oh, dude, this guy. And I'm like, I'm looking at him just going,
yeah.
And the deputy goes, he's your friend? Yeah, he's with us. We're literally just trying to get him water. If you let him go with me, I'll make sure he gets water. Well, at that time, the EMT comes up, and she looks at me, and she goes, I'm admitting you. Because, I mean, I was
IV or something?
No, I'm taking you to the hospital.
Oh, no.
Because I was covered in, I mean, I had gashes all over my body.
You must have looked like a freak, dude.
It was bad. And I'm immediately like, no, my party's down there. They don't know where I am. I don't know how long I've been gone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the hospital. It's not happening. And then she's like, well, you're not going back in that crowd with covered in blood like that. And I was like, well, then give me a towel. And so the deputies, because if he wipes him down, you let him go. And she goes, fine. So the deputies go into the bathroom, come out with like a stack of wet. He literally was pulling the hand towels and wetting them for me.
Dude.
And I'm sitting at this park bench. He comes over, gets them to me, and I just wipe myself off. And then I like get all the blood off, and I look around, and they had turned their back, and I just dipped the hell out. Went back, walked into my seat, sat down. Everyone's kind of partying. And then Krista just looks at me and does a double take, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, I just put my hand up. I was like, I can't talk about this right now. I don't want to talk about this right now.
Wow, that's an epic story, dude.
So, point being, that will happen. Yeah. You get a lot of people outside; they're hot. That stuff happens. Yeah. And when you're talking about that happening to you and you're in the middle of a crowd of 1,000 people that are all surging forward, that's when people die. And we'll talk about that next in this tragedy on Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern, back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 236. We are doing Astroworld Tragedy, the Trainwreck on Netflix. So this documentary, I think, does a really good job. The only thing, I didn't like that safety expert guy. He is kind of phony baloney.
Yeah.
But what you do get is you get the perspective from all the different players in this. And that includes Travis Scott. That includes the audio engineers. That includes the security guys on site. The production guys that are in real time hearing reports that there are active CPRs going on. There are, and at one point, and again, there are people that were there that claim, and they've got record of it, where Travis is stopping the show because he's saying, hey, something's going on here.
Hey, chill out for a second.
He thinks it's cool, and then he moves on. Well, this was, again, a perfect storm of they had way more people in there than they should have.
Yeah.
You had people gate crashing.
And if you're in a crowd like that that's surging and going crazy, a lot of times you're floating. Kind of
well, that's a point. There were several victims.
Fall, you better hope somebody's pulling you up. Dude,
there were several victims that, when they were doing the autopsies of, had literally no visible marks on them, but they were asphyxiated. So basically, they got pushed into a crowd and lifted so tightly that they got suffocated to death. That is horrific, my friend. And then, like an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid, you have people in that crowd, that was their first concert.
Yeah, man.
That's insane. And, the thing is, again, there are a lot of failures in this system, but there is, again, a part of ownership that you must take on yourself. And Jay's been very vocal about this, about when you go to things like this, know where you are, know who you are, know where your exits are, know all that stuff. I'm not going to tell you that getting in the middle of a crowd and just being in a mosh pit for 2 hours and just feeling that. There are so many experiences I've had with heavy shows like that that were amazing. And I was younger, and I would never do that now. When they just had that Pops in the Park, and everyone just came to my house and we listened to the whole thing, everyone was like, I would pay for this experience. And that's because at a certain point in your life, you want to experience it, but you want to do it on your terms.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? When I go to a show, I don't go to the front. I go to the soundboard, and I hang out with those dudes because that's where you're going to hear it the best.
Nice,
you got your own space,
cool, comfortable experience.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to get in that anymore. But it sucks that these kids, they wanted to be a part of that, and you had 9 kids people that lost their lives because they just went to a concert. It was crazy, man. Yeah. But the thing that's crazy is that I think the craziest thing in this situation specifically was that canceling it came down to 2 people calling that. Yeah. It only could have come down from 2. And so when you're in a job, and you know how hard it is just from what we do when things go wrong.
Things are chaotic, man.
And a commercial's not playing right, or is that really the way it's supposed to be? There's 3 or 4 people in our little world that are trying to figure out.
You have to problem solve this.
And then you eventually either have to come to a manager or someone that has to make the call. And we're talking about very minuscule, insignificant
we're not
fires,
about
not
millions of dollars.
People dying and getting hurt in real time. So there has to be a better way. All these kids, and you feel bad for the guys that were involved in this that are going to take this with them for the rest of their lives, because now they know what happened and they didn't make that call. Because, it could have been as small as a light guy that's running the lights, right? If he was aware of it to a point where he's like, are you kidding me? There are people doing active CPRs. He just throws on all the house lights, and then that forces something to happen. Or they pull the power on his vocals and they can't hear Travis. Someone at some point pulls that cord, and it would have stopped everything. But nobody did that.
Because you have to be so sure on that move.
But who cares? If it costs me my job...
that's erring on the side of what's
If it costs me my job to be the one to pull it, and they go, dude, it wasn't that big of a deal, then fire me.
It could have been...
You know what I mean? Because that's not, if that's not the type of life or person I'm going to live. I'm going to err on the side of safety always. Always. And if that costs me my job, then so be it. We'll go deliver trash, just like we always said we would. We'll be back with our reviews of this next train wreck on Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio one more time. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 237, Trainwreck, Astroworld Tragedy. I'd give it a solid 3.5, 4.
Yeah, I think a 4 because I
good.
wasn't too familiar with the story. It was great, like I said, they do great with this series of Trainwrecks. And speaking of, that'll be my pick next. Will be the next Trainwreck in the series, Poop Cruise. About a cruise?
Oh, the Dave Matthews Band thing at the...
No.
Where they dumped
Dave
the...
Matthews Band.
No, there's a story. Okay, so the Dave Matthews Band was on tour, and their bus driver stopped over the river in Chicago, like downtown Chicago, and dumped the septic tank into the river.
Oh, that could be...
Problem with that is they do live tours on the river all the time, and guess who
know.
got covered with waste?
No.
Yeah, a bunch of people on a tour boat, my friend. So that's what I thought it was.
That would be probably a great Trainwreck episode.
Oh,
but
still.
No, this is about a cruise ship that just everything went south, man.
Poop cruise?
Yes.
You know, this would be great because I always give him hell by
I
going
want a
on
lot of
cruises.
cruises, yeah.
He loves cruises. I hate them for a lot of reasons. But
I love him for a lot of
we'll
reasons.
fight about this next
Yeah.
time.
Oh, no!
You can stream this every Thursday at 9 on Facebook or YouTube. You can download it as a podcast at the same time for free.
You could come hang out with Tyler and do it live.
Just don't do it when he's sick because he kind of becomes a little
He's
poopy.
quiet today. I
Gets
don't know what's going on. He's kind of got a little stash going on, too. Like
I know, it's going good. I don't have to compliment him anymore because it's there. It's part of him.
He's actually got a mustache. You look like Morgan Wallen.
Do you want to give everyone an update? You started it.
I'm too sick.
Yeah.
Oh, you're sick?
He does
Oh, great. That's all I
fairly-
need.
All right, well, 2 weeks we'll give you a good update. It's Dark Side of the Stream.
We
We
watch
watch movies,
documentaries,
so you don't have
to.
to. I'm 104.7 The Cave.
Oh, I didn't know Tyler was sick.
Yeah, I think he's got what I had, which is great. It's
I don't
my
know
problem.
any of that, guys. I need to be non-sick.
You're screwed.
I'm screwed.
You're screwed.
No.